The 2019-2020 NBA season has officially resumed. But what exactly is this NBA bubble? What about the playoffs? How do you make winning bets from now through the finals? Welcome back to aosportspicks TV. I'm Alpha Omega. Now that the season has officially resumed with the NBA bubble in Orlando, the prayers of the sports betting world have been answered and we finally have real sports to bet on. No offense to those out there who have been touting and betting on Korean baseball, but it feels good to have the NBA back. The unique situation presented by this one-of-a-kind NBA season is unlike anything that has ever been attempted before. And this presents opportunities for intelligent sports bettors to use information and concepts specific to the NBA bubble to make money from the first game all the way through the NBA Finals. But if you want to increase your winning bets, a change in how you view the game is necessary. For instance, the rebooted season doesn't start with the playoffs. There is an 8-game regular season to determine which of the 22 teams in the bubble make it into the playoffs and what the seeding for those playoff teams will be. We will go over scheduling in more detail in a moment. While in theory this 8-game restart to determine playoff spots seems simple enough, consider this. What are the lineups going to be for the 8-game restart versus the lineups that will be used during the playoffs? A team like the Lakers could lose all 8 games and still be guaranteed a playoff spot. Now take that piece of information and then consider whether playoff contenders like the Lakers will be playing their star players every night, or will coaches instead choose to conserve the overall health of the team and focus on getting role players more reps and game minutes during the 8-game restart? The same is true for all of the teams with a guaranteed playoff spot. It's just not worth it to these teams to risk injury during the 8-game restart. I also don't expect any of the major playoff contenders to show off their game plans during this 8-game restart. I'd say there's about as much chance of a certain Lakers star deciding to wear a face mask during his Instagram live sessions. So I'm sure by now you're asking, what's the point of this 8-game restart if the top teams aren't even going to be playing at full strength? Besides the fact that we finally have actual NBA games to bet on, there are a few reasons why these games are important. While around 90% of all games during the 8-game restart will have virtually no playoff consequences, there are a few teams who could play their way out of or into a playoff spot, or even a potential play-in scenario. If you're wondering what the hell is a play-in scenario, stick with me. A play-in scenario takes place if after the 8-game restart, the number 9 seed is within 4 games of the number 8 seed. At that point, the 8th and 9th seed play kind of a sudden death best-of-3 hybrid series. The 8th seed only needs to win once to clinch a playoff berth and knock out the 9th seed. The 9 seed will have to win 2 in a row in order to clinch the final playoff berth. Win percentage determines which teams make it into the playoffs. Here is a graph breaking down where every team in the East would finish in win percentage, showing all possible outcomes at the end of the 8-game restart. The top 6 teams in the East are safe to make it into the playoffs, and the Orlando Magic will have to battle the Washington Wizards and Brooklyn Nets for the final 8th spot. Given that the Magic are 5.5 games up, and the Wizards will be without their best player in Bradley Beal, it's highly unlikely that Washington will make it in. The Nets would not only have to go 2-6, but the Wizards would have to go 4-4 just to force a play-in scenario like we just talked about. The Eastern Conference is basically locked up, outside of the Wizards needing to walk on water in order to get in. Let's take a look at the West. Quickly, notice that there are 13 Western Conference teams versus only 9 Eastern Conference teams. The reason for the disproportionate number of Western Conference teams is that besides the 16 teams that were already slated for a playoff spot when the season was put on hold, the remaining teams chosen for entry into the NBA bubble were 6 games or fewer behind the 8th seed in the playoff race. As the West has more teams within 6 games of the 8th seed, there are more Western Conference teams in the bubble. The West therefore has a greater number of teams within striking distance of a playoff spot. Also, notice the lead Memphis has here. Even if the Blazers and the Pelicans go 8-0, the Grizzlies can still go 5-3 and hold on to the 8th seed. Both the Blazers and the Pelicans have enough talent to conceivably knock off Memphis and take the 8th seed. The Pelicans have the easiest schedule in the entire bubble, while the Blazers face the Rockets, Nuggets, and Clippers in consecutive games, and then a back-to-back versus the 76ers. To make money betting during the 8-game restart, it will be crucial to keep track of playoff motivation. If one of these teams are mathematically eliminated from the playoffs, there's a strong chance we see second or even third stringers getting more minutes, and a total change in betting strategy will then be necessary. One thing you can count on is that more smart money, or what we call sharp money, will be put on the line once at least 2 or 3 games in the 8-game restart have taken place. Because of all the variables involved in a restart after 4.5 months off, it's difficult to say how well these teams will perform the first few games back. It's one thing to defend one of your teammates in practice when there are no stakes and you're allowed to hold back, all the while knowing the tendencies and play calls. It's a completely different animal when you're going against a different team that is fighting to reach the same goal and knock you off along the way. Because there is no home court advantage, the rankings for these teams or your team power ratings should be more neutral because every single game is going to be on a neutral court. In NFL point spreads, being at home is worth 3 points. It's not as formal in the NBA, but is very much real. Season after season, teams playing at home win close to 60% of the time. In the 5 seasons from 2014-2015 through 2018-2019, for example, their combined winning percentage was 58.3%. There may be a good chance to make some money once at least 2 games in the 8-game restart have been played, because there is a good chance that there will be inefficiencies in the marketplace. When I say inefficiencies, what I'm talking about are teams being overvalued or undervalued by the sports betting marketplace. If the Miami Heat look tough after the first couple games, the betting public and therefore the betting marketplace may start to overvalue the team. That's when it's time for you to get your money down. These are the types of opportunities that you as a winning sports bettor have to be entirely focused on 24 hours a day, every day. I understand that most people don't have the time to be looking at live odds on a computer screen, waiting for that one right moment to get your bet down. But remember what I said about how important it is to change your thinking so that you can become a winning sports bettor. Think about it like this. Whenever you place a bet at a sports book, there are literally rooms of people on their payroll where their whole job is to create betting lines designed to take your money from you. Something I always say is I ask people to take a look at all the fancy casinos and the high-rise hotels in Las Vegas. How do you think they were all built? They were all built on the losing bets that other people made thinking they were going to win. You have to think about it like a war. Except in this war, there is no Geneva Convention, and these bookies will rip your heart out with a smile on their face every day of the year and twice on Christmas. But there's no reason to get mad at them. Like I just said, their job is to take your money from you. But a sports bettor always has one huge advantage that no sportsbook will ever have. A sportsbook has no choice but to put out a betting line on every single game, regardless of whether they actually like the game or not. But as sports bettors, we can pick and choose which games we bet on. So to bring it back full circle, when the Miami Heat have looked tough the first 2 games of the 8-game restart, and the sports books have decided to overvalue the team, as a sports bettor, we can use that advantage to pick and choose which games to bet on. We can snipe the weak line put up by the sports books and put money in our pocket before they even know what hit them. During the 8-game restart, especially from a qualitative perspective, a team that plays tough defense and has good coaching may provide opportunity for smart bettors to make money because these teams may win more games than expected. Teams that have chemistry, and by chemistry, I mean teams that have spent more time playing together and are comfortable with their roles, may also be undervalued by the marketplace. An example of the importance of chemistry during this rebooted season would be the difference between a team like the Sixers and a team like the Raptors. While it's true that on paper the 76ers have more overall talent, Philadelphia hasn't even solidified their rotations. 76ers coach Brett Brown admitted after Tuesday's practice inside the NBA's bubble in Walt Disney World Resort that Joel Embiid and Al Horford have yet to play together in practice. The Raptors have better team chemistry, which in a shortened season after a 4.5-month break may hold more value than during a normal NBA season. There are no reports of unhappiness in the locker room in Toronto. The same can't be said about the 76ers. More importantly, the Raptors have been together through an NBA title run, have much better coaching, and have better rotations. What all of this means is there is no way the 76ers should be favored against the Raptors. But because Philly has more talent, and I predict that team chemistry will be an undervalued commodity, there might be value betting on the Raptors on a game-by-game basis. It's not all just Siakam. The Raptors get solid backcourt play from Fred VanVleet and Philadelphia native Kyle Lowry. The front court has veteran leadership in Marc Gasol and Serge Ibaka, who were instrumental in containing Embiid in last year's playoffs. Quickly, make sure and pay attention to each team's home-road splits. Remember that there is no home court advantage in this NBA season restart. I'm not trying to pick on Philadelphia here, but I'm using the Sixers again to prove my point. Prior to the season being put on hold, Philadelphia had the best home record in the NBA, going 29-2 at home during the regular season. At home, the Philadelphia 76ers have beaten a murderer's row of NBA teams. They've defeated the Boston Celtics twice, the Miami Heat, the Toronto Raptors, the Milwaukee Bucks, the Los Angeles Lakers, and the LA Clippers. But on the road, the Sixers weren't even a 500 team, only going 10-24. Teams that play well at home but struggle on the road, like the 76ers, are likely to be at a disadvantage during the 8-game season restart and, more importantly, throughout the playoffs. Only 7 teams in the NBA have worse road records, and obviously no other playoff team can match up with this woeful mark. Because of the very real possibility of a star player getting sick at some point during the restarted season and being forced to leave the team for an extended period of time, the betting market is going to be constantly adjusting according to the health of the players. Teams like Milwaukee, or even a team like the Clippers, are a riskier bet because the team relies so heavily on one star player to control the offense. The possibility of that star player getting hurt or sick can easily turn a winning bet into a losing one. The opposite can be said for a team like the Celtics, where there is no one single player that would move the win probability of a series more than a couple percentage points or the spread of a game more than a point or two. Because of the potential for injury or someone getting sick, it's smart to keep bets in the futures market lighter, especially considering the small percentage that no one will get sick or injured during the bubble. In order to make money betting on sports, you need to do your best to stay ahead of the marketplace, and even more importantly than that, you need to be aware when the market has caught up to you and whatever edge you've been using to make money is no longer making you money. When that happens, it's up to you to recognize the change in the betting marketplace and, more importantly, be disciplined enough to know when it's time to drop a strategy that might have made you a lot of money in the past but isn't anymore, and when it's time to find a new one. Here is one strategy that has continually made me money and may be especially useful during the NBA bubble. Consider creating a list on Twitter of the beat writers that cover the individual teams. Once you've curated the list, then you can stay up to date with quick injury information, practice information, and a bunch of other forms of useful info, and then you can act on that information and put your bets in before the sportsbooks and the betting marketplace has had a chance to change the lines. I've seen so many times that a tweet comes from someone like Woj or Adam Schefter 45 minutes to an hour after the tweet originally came from a beat writer who covers that particular team. By the time the big dogs like Woj have tweeted out the news, it's way too late and there's no value left in the info. As sports bettors, we always have to be looking for little edges, and that's one of them. If you've listened to the information I've given you throughout the video, your knowledge of how to bet on both the NBA restarted season and the playoffs has increased, and I feel like I've done my job. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments section, and I'll make sure to answer them for you. Also, consider heading over to my website, aosportspicks.com, and signing up for a sports betting package. Finally, make sure and subscribe to this channel, hit the like button, and click the notification bell so you get notified whenever I release a new video. Once again, I'm Alpha Omega. See you next time.